That music always gets me pumped up, man. For some
I,
reason, I'm like in the
I
background.
love that last little cymbal hit at the end, and it just kind
Yeah.
of rings out. It's shh. It's
Yeah, man.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So, dude, a few updates, man. What a week it has been. Really, what a week. And it feels like everything is happening all at one time. And I sat down with my wife and I told her, I was like, how crazy it is that things work like this. Um, so as of late, I've been getting emails in, and I don't know if I mentioned this in the last podcast we did or last live stream. I've been getting emails in from jobs that I applied to, like GS positions that I applied to like 9 months ago, like almost when I retired, right? And I knew a lot of these like GS or like working with the DoD. The DoD, you do not rate to work with the DoD unless you have a waiver until you are 6 months out from your retirement, right?
Right.
Other GS positions under USAJobs, you do rate some of those, right? If you like the forestry service or things like that. Uh, but amazingly enough, I've been getting just a slew of emails after just like the non-referred. Now they want to conduct interviews. And I just did an interview just last week, and it was kind of crazy. For one, nothing ever goes right. Right. I'll put it like this. Nothing ever goes right. When you think you got everything set up as far as like tech, nothing ever goes right. I
Right.
have my laptop there. I was going to use this camera here, just make it look nice, right? Like I'm in an interview, I got my shirt and tie on, I got the cool background, everything's looking good. And because, some of the folks on the panel are prior military.
Right.
And sure enough, I go to start the interview on MS Teams probably maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes before, and something's not working. The audio's not working. The video's not working. I'm like, what the hell's going on? So I switch it out from this to my continuity camera on my phone. That thing is not connecting. I'm like, what the hell? So I get on the call. My camera's not working. And I'm like, look, I'm sorry. If you just give me a few seconds, let me just try to fix this thing. I rip all the wires out from my laptop and I just connect it to the power and I set it right here. Out of all the tech I have, I just rip
Yep.
everything out, put my laptop right here in front of me, and I just continue on with my smudged freaking camera, my laptop camera that I have there. And that's how we conducted it. That's how we conducted it. And it's the interview was a little rocky because I was still like kind of on edge because nothing was really working.
Right.
They're asking their
It's tough.
questions. I'm trying. Yeah, exactly. I'm figuring out my audio. I was like, as they're asking the questions, and I'm like, just trying to keep it as cool as I can. But holy crap, man, everything at one time. And after the second question, I got my groove going, and normally I'm pretty good at interviews. I can kind of keep a calm facade inside of like my mind's kind of working. Um, but yeah, this one was a little nerve-wracking, dude. It was like, I don't know if you've ever had an interview process like that or if you've had like technical difficulties when like it was crunch time, but holy crap, man. It was like they were looking at me and they're like, "Hey, Nate, give us your top 3 leadership traits that you kind of hold dear," And I'm like, uh, uh,
One of them right now is patience. Patience is a virtue.
dude, yeah, exactly. I was like, keeping things under control, staying calm. Dude, it was, oh my God, man. And
I can
my
I
wife
can
is
tell
like,
you, MS Teams is just a piece of garbage. Like
dude,
I'll just say it that way. Like I've been on it now for the last, I don't know, week or so. I mean,
yeah,
it works. I've used it in the past, of course, in the military, and I've used it for many other applications. And certain organizations that I've worked with use MS Teams, and I'm just like, can we just please, for the love of God, stop using MS Teams or in SharePoint? And like I got it. It's secure and it's enterprise, and I got it. I understand.
yeah.
I totally get it, but it's just crap. Like,
But that's the thing is we're never going away from that because they
no,
have invested so much money into that, into the O365, the entire realm of O365. We're never going away from that.
yeah.
I
And I'm not
just,
saying Teams is bad. Like Teams
yeah,
works, right? But literally, like before we got on, I was having an issue, and all I did was close the browser, open the browser back up, and everything started working again. I was like, okay, cool. You can't do that in Teams. That doesn't work. Not
No,
even
dude, you got to
close.
restart the whole computer, right?
Besides the fact that the damn URL is like 600 characters long and it's bigger than my password,
Oh,
which is pretty
God,
long either way.
it's terrible, man. It's terrible. So, yeah, and funny enough, with this job, my current boss, I didn't know what my boss was talking about when they approached me and they said, "Hey, hey, I got I'm answering the questions that they're requiring of me and that they need by Monday. So just to let you know." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, "Oh, well, you applied for a job, right?" And I'm like, "Oh shit." Like, I didn't realize, because when you apply for a job on USA Jobs, at the beginning you put something like, they ask you, can we contact your employer, your current employer? And I put yes, of course, and I put their information on there just to kind of keep the flow going, right? And sure enough, they contacted my current boss and, they sent her I guess, a questionnaire on me. So I'm like, oh, well, this is awkward. She's like, it doesn't have to be. It's all good. I understand. Got it. Cool. She was cool about it.
Yeah.
But, and then she actually sat me down and walked me through this entire process. She's like,
Wow.
look, I got into this job by doing this. She's like, you don't just go off of the job description on USA Jobs. And I'll even share this on here. Right. It was, let me see. Share screen, and yeah, she directed me to this OPM website,
Mhm.
right? So the OPM is the Office of Personnel Management, and she's like, "Look, just type in whatever your job is." So I don't know. Let's think of a job here. Um, Investigative officer. Let's say investigative. And something comes up. I don't know. Investigations. There's a thing called the fly sheet on here.
Mhm.
And on the flash, let me see if I can find it. I'll just do like admin officer, administrative. Okay, nothing's coming up. I got you.
Try
1 second.
information technology specialist.
Information technology specialist. All right, one of these. Something has to have
1 2 10.
some.
Yep. That's it.
Is it this one here?
Mhm.
Okay. So on these, there's a portion on here that says fly sheet somewhere on there, and it tells you exactly what the requirements are for this job. And she tells me, "Hey, look, based on like whatever GS level it is." She's like, "A lot of people make the mistake of going through whatever is posted on the actual announcement." She's like, "Don't do that. Go off of go also off the announcement, but also look at the fly sheet or whatever's on OPM. That'll tell you exactly what they're looking for." And she's like, "Just add that stuff if it pertains to what you've already have experience in. Add that stuff onto your resume." Exactly how they have it worded there. I didn't know that. I was always going off the cuff and just like, "Hey, I do this and this and this," and try to make it sound all civilianized. Nah. So she kind of opened my world to the OPM. I never actually went on this site before. So like I'm like, what are you showing me? Are you giving me tips on how to find a job?
Yeah. Yeah, you match those job title identifiers that like the 2210 for information technology management services or whatever.
Mhm.
And you just match that on OPM, and then it'll give you way beyond what the job description on USA Jobs gives you. So it'll tell you like all the different ends, like you said, the different levels: GS5, GS9,
Yeah.
GS12, and it'll tell you exactly what the job description dictates for that position. Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of impressed by that. I'm like, man, I if only I would have known this. I have probably sent out I don't know how many resumes in the past, through USA Jobs. I'm probably looking at about 50 maybe resumes so far, and I got 3, referrals and interviews, so I'm like, wow. And these are jobs I applied for like 10 months ago. It's crazy how long it actually takes for them to look at that. So it's not a
Oh yeah.
quick thing. If anybody out there is looking for that, it's like it's not a quick thing at all for USA Jobs. like unless it's like a direct hire or something. It's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of people have told me in the past as well to go check on the OPM website and just look up the series number 2210 or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
And when you're building your resume specifically for that job
Hmm.
to apply for it, then you could use that as a reference as well as the things that they're requiring and then the skills and all that stuff, and kind of put it together and see what matches up and use those as kind of like your key points on your resume. And then you can go in and add the narratives with that stuff based on
Yeah.
those things to match everything up. Because yeah, it doesn't, I think the, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, just please put it in the comments or shoot us a message on here and let us know. But when it's doing that initial scan, it's looking certainly for keywords that are in the job description as well, but it's also looking for specific things for that series, for that job, right? And that's stuff that doesn't get on the job description when you're looking at it on USA Jobs.
Yeah, exactly. So it opened my eyes to a whole new world of looking into this stuff. I had no idea. So that was good. And on top of that, like the interview questions, right? So I answered the interview questions and um, the follow up from the interviewer, from the main guy, was, "Hey, we're going to send you a kind of like a question, like an exam, right? Like you have 2 hours to answer this thing." I'm like, okay. My fault in this was, it, 2 hours from when? Because he's like, "Hey, we're going to send you this thing, and you have 2 hours to conduct this and send it back to us." So a 2 hour time limit, basically. So I'm
Right.
sitting there. I sat there and I waited for 30 minutes. I'm like, I can't get up from my damn desk. Like, I don't know when he's going to send it, you know? So like, I can't go outside and do anything. Like, my kid's like, "Hey, can we go play basketball, Dad?" I'm like,
Nope,
no. Yeah,
not today.
no idea. Yeah. So let me see. Admin, does the higher pay grade we attain while serving indicate our ability to lead and manage in an organization to them? Um, Higher pay grade we attain while serving. So I would say it all depends on what you do. Okay. Because I know, I, I'll put it this way. I know folks who have trouble getting GS positions. However, I currently work with an E4 who got out just a few years ago, who is an IT guy, who is a GS13. So, and he works alongside like Navy captains who are GS13s. And, so they're like IT guys. They may have different roles and stuff like that, but that's like the most I've ever seen, like an E4, prior E4, who is now a GS13. Like, good on him, man. I like that for him. But no, it really matters what you did and what kind of experience you have. It doesn't matter if I was lieutenant colonel and I'm applying for a GS13 job and I don't have the experience, so I'm not going to get that job. If I have intricate experience in that, then yeah, more than likely I'm going to be getting a second look at that position.
And also how you articulate it on your resume and how you articulate it in the interview process. Like we had a 2-star general on way back when we first started doing these interviews,
Hmm.
even before we linked up.
Yeah.
And he's a medical officer. He runs his own practice in Texas, and he was applying for GS jobs like 12s and 13s, and he wasn't getting them. He wasn't getting hits for them because of the fact that the resume didn't correctly articulate it. Maybe it didn't cross-reference with the OPM guidelines for that specific series. And then if you ever get to the interview process, like I'm sure he would have been perfect for the interview, but
Yeah.
you have to be able to articulate those highlighted leadership skills and where you've applied them, and like
That's huge.
quantify
Yeah.
what you've done over the years. Yeah.
That's huge, man. Like, I had applied for GS positions on jobs that were like less than what I was actually doing for damn near 20 years. Like investigations and stuff like that. I'm like, I ran the investigation department. Like, I gave classes on that, and I've done multiple investigations. I've taught people on how to conduct investigations, and I could not get my foot in the door. It's all because of I was exactly, you mentioned how I was articulating it on my resume. I wasn't providing specific enough examples on there. So it kind of came back to bite me in the ass. And I was getting frustrated. I was like, how is it that I know how to do this? I've supervised people on doing this. I've written fitness reports on people for this, and I can't get my foot in the door for a damn, a GS11, GS12. But yeah, it is how you word it. Definitely. Most
Yeah.
absolutely.
I did want to jump back a step and course correct from what I said last. We were
Yeah.
talking about a lot of art stuff last week.
Mhm.
And I thought it was the same organization that that you were working with there in San Diego, but it was not the one. The little kit that I got, I picked up for my wife. It's got a little sketchbook in there, and it's got a couple stickers and some pens and markers and a little set of pencils in the back. The guys were really, really cool, but I just want to make sure I shout them out and give them their props and give them their flowers. And the creative arts for vets is basically what that is.
Okay. Let me write that down. I have not heard of that one.
Yeah. So yeah. And also because of that, because I thought you might want to reach out to them because you do a lot of stuff with art.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's huge, man. I'm going to look into that because I'm all over that stuff. Like even with my town here, like we're starting up a whole arts district, and I went to the city hall meetings just to talk about it. I'm like, hey, look, this would be huge because there's a large veteran preference in Southern California. I'm like, I would love to head something up with the city. I just have to figure out how. And so I'm teaming up with nonprofits and things like that. And we're trying to figure out how I can get my foot in that door, because I just don't want to be that one guy that provides free consultations. Like I'd like to, not just provide it. I'd like to get reimbursed somehow, make a little bit on the side if I'm using my time and my effort to help out. But my main objective is the veterans, definitely. So no, that's good. Creative arts for vets. And they do what? They provide packets or packages of art supplies.
yeah, art supplies to veterans. I think they do a few other things. Let me see if I can pull them up online and pull up the site. Creative arts for vets. Screen. I did really put my glasses back on.
It's all good, man. Just zoom in on the screen.
And share it.
There you go. Rural engagement. Get a free copy of CAT book, Improving Well-Being for U.S. Veterans and Service Members. Aims to support veteran service members and military-connected populations of all ages and abilities through the arts and arts-based approaches that promote connectedness and improve mental health and well-being. I like it. Yeah, I'm definitely going to hit them up. And they're a VA vendor through SAM.gov.
Yeah.
So anybody looking to get into like contracts, government contracts, you got to look up SAM.gov and take a course or find out classes on SAM.gov. I used to do contracts and stuff and for the military, and big time. If you know how to work SAM, you'll do some good stuff out there.
And if you don't know how to work SAM and you want to learn how to work SAM, we have a good friend of ours, well, a good friend of mine, Sheena, better known on the internet as Sheenapreneur. You can look her up online. She was interviewed back about 2 years ago, also early on in the process. I just linked up with her back in Atlanta for the MIC. She was out there for the MIC, and she actually does a deep dive kind of masterclass on government contracting, and not just at the federal level, but also down at the state level and the local level as well. And she's been doing it for a few years, as she was also a reservist and a GS employee. She was doing the state and local contracting on the side and building her business on the side as she was working in her government position as well. And then eventually she got to the point where she retired from the reserves with her 20-year letter. And since then, she's just taken off. Like, her YouTube channel's blown up, and she's been killing it. She's really been killing it on the contracting side. And she's also connected with a ton of people across the country in the United States doing contracting. She goes to a lot of events. She's really out there doing so. Big shout out to Sheena if you want to get into contracting, learn about SAM.gov and learn about how to get your foot in the door. And you'd be surprised, like setting up a contract to sell, towels to the gym on the base or something like that. Like you'd be surprised what you can do with that stuff.
It could be anything, man. You could like make a company who subcontracts for what is it? What is that one guy? It was a company that was subcontracting folk like janitors. And all he did was go out, like we'd contract the guy, he'd go out and he'd have like different teams of janitors, like put them on the clock and stuff like that. They'd come clean the bathrooms, office buildings, things like that. And he'd reap the rewards, and then in turn he would pay these folks. But there's big money out there for this.
Oh yeah, that's what Sheena was doing for a while. She was actually doing a lot of industrial kind of cleaning services around the city of Atlanta. And then at some point she got a contract. She landed a contract to clean like some big stadium somewhere, and it wasn't in Atlanta. It was like in Pittsburgh or somewhere. Yeah. So she just went from there and kept on moving. But yeah, it's crazy. Like I think that's really how she got her start, was doing that industrial cleaning services.
Yeah, that's big money out there, man.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So yeah, I just so I'm gonna transition here a little bit on civilian stuff, right? And I've been working on this one video, and it's how to be an effective civilian, how to actually become a civilian, because it's something that I am not having trouble with. I've been a civilian for, I don't know, like 10 months, maybe 11 months since I retired. It has its ups and downs. Some days are a little bit harder than some others. But how to be an effective civilian, right? And I'll give you a little scenario here. So today I went to my kid's Little League game, and there were words exchanged between parents at this Little League game. And it got to the point where it was that people started coming at each other, right, on the field, or not on the field, behind the dugouts and stuff, while the kids were watching this. Excuse me. And I thought to myself, if I had been in my younger years, if I had been in any other mindset, I've always been the type to be a little bit more aggressive, right, to get things done. Like, coming from a Marine mindset, I'm like, oh yeah, it's always go, right? It's always go. And I thought to myself, you know what, with my kid there, with my wife there, I need to hold it back a little bit, especially with all these other parents just kind of yelling, and, like profanities at each other, kind of like inviting physical altercations. And I immediately thought to myself, I got to get out of this situation. It's a little bit of situational awareness, right? Like things starting not to feel right, things brewing, tensions rising. Immediately, I was like, hey, I told my wife, hey, we got to go, because I don't know what's going to happen here. Some of these folks are a little crazy. So I grabbed my kid, we left, right? But I got to thinking, I was like, if I had been in any other mindset, I would have joined in on that. And, I didn't. And that's part of kind of evolving into a civilian. To me, it is, at least. Granted, all these other people were civilians themselves, right? They didn't know. But in the back of my mind, I thought, you know what? The military has taught me something, and it is to stay disciplined when things become out of, start going like into chaos. I stayed calm. I stayed controlled, grabbed my wife, let's go. And we departed the situation. Didn't even look back. I'm like, whatever happens back there, happens back there. I'm not staying around to figure it out because I got my family here with me. But yeah, it went to show me, I'm like, okay, the military served me right in this aspect. Like I was calm and controlled, looked at the situation, grabbed my wife, we got to go. grab my kid. We got to go. I mean, there was kids crying in the dugout, dude. I'm like, because I mean, it was bad. Like they were watching their parents, like, hey, come on, get up, come on, let's go, come at me. I'm like, this is not good. I started writing a letter to the district, to the league. I'm like, hey, look, what the hell is going on here? I don't even want to bring my kid back. Because it's just because the coaches and the parents and all that stuff. Everybody was kind of involved. It was just complete chaos. But yeah, at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm glad that I have the discipline enough to kind of notice this and just move on. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's not only that, but just not only being a good civilian. When you first said being a good civilian, I was thinking, okay, we're going to talk about civilian jobs and work stuff, and you're going straight to
We can get
the
into that
heart of it.
too.
Well, no, I mean you hit
Yeah.
the right direction, but I was thinking immediately like, okay, we're talking about civilian jobs and being a good worker in the
Yeah.
civilian workforce, but you nailed it on the head, like being a good civilian and ultimately just being a better human being.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
we've got so much stuff. Like I binge watched basically 2 really long episodes of the Joe Rogan podcast recently. It's 3 hours apiece. One
As
was
did I.
with Trump and one was
Yeah.
with Vance, right?
Hey,
And I'm waiting
look
for
look
the
at that.
Kamala Harris one to come out, so I can watch that as well. Because
Is
not
that going to
because of the
happen?
fact it might. He's reached
Okay.
out and she said she was thinking about doing it, and I would
Yeah.
love to see her go on there because ultimately, at the end of the day, like I could care less about the political divide and which side of the fence you're on
Yeah.
and all that stuff. Like to me, it doesn't matter. To me, what matters is, are we being a good steward of
Hmm.
this power that we hold in the United States, being one of the
Right.
most powerful nations in the world?
Yeah.
Are we providing a good example to the rest of the world, whether
Yeah.
it's Trump in office, Harris in office, anybody in office? Like one person
Right.
is not going to change the fate of the world. It
Yeah.
takes cabinet members and Congress and Senate and all that stuff. And to be quite honest, if I want to go there, like maybe we should start shuffling some of these senators and Congress people out of office because they've been in there quite a long time and they
Mhm.
probably need to go, or at least rotate them out into different spots or something. But they're in that mindset. But anyways, to backtrack and get back on topic, being a good human. Like if you look at my personal Facebook page, you may be watching it from there. I put out a lot of quotes, and I know I put a couple quotes in the military retirement group at one point, and you had asked me, you're like, what are these quotes for? It's like,
Yeah.
it's really
I
about
was like, John, is everything okay, man?
I'm good, I'm good. No, it's really like it's me reminding myself with reflections on different philosophies, different books that I read, different things that
Yeah.
I ingest in my daily habits
Mhm.
to remind myself that at the end of the day, like be a good person, don't be an asshole, and do something positive that reflects on the world that you want to put out there into the world, like what we're doing. And that's really all it is. And then of course, if you've got children or grandchildren,
Mhm.
be a good, respectable, responsible, like somebody they can look up to as a role model, somebody they can look up to as somebody who they want to emulate or want to try to be like, because that's who's watching, right?
Oh,
You're worried
100%.
about the political election and like is it going to be a Republican or Democrat? Like if you step back a little bit further and look, like what you really need to focus on is how are you influencing our next generation of children who are going
Yeah.
to be those presidents and senators and mayors and all these people running our country in the next 20 or so years, 30 years. Like that's really where you make the change. You can make a change with
Yeah.
a vote, but you can make a bigger change by putting out a positive outlook and being a good role model for the next generation of kids. And that
Yeah.
right there, what happened at that game, I think that's the total opposite of that.
Oh, absolutely, man. I sat there and I watched from the bleachers.
Yeah.
And at one point, one of the other coaches, this female from the other side, she came by and she's like, "Hey, everybody, I just need everybody to shut up. This is a kids' game," and attempting to de-escalate the situation. And good on her. But then in turn, somebody from the home side, which we were on, she began shouting profanities at her. I'm like, what? What is that? What is this about? It didn't it felt bad. It was all around bad. A bad situation. I'm like, I need to get out of here. And it sucked because the kids were looking around like, what's happening? They're looking to their coach, but their coach is the one also involved in this. So um yeah. And then I got home and I look at my wife, I was like, what was that? What like how why do we act like that, and especially in front of kids? It's not like it's the World Series. I got it, like you might be a Dodgers fan, or you might be cool. You might be a Mets fan, or excuse me, a Yankees fan. You
Yeah,
might be cool with grabbing Mookie Betts' glove and not letting him go, out in the outfield. But that's like a whole different level. This is a kid's game, you know. Um, yeah, that left a bad taste in my mouth with all that. I'm like, I don't want to be around this. I don't even want my kid to go back and play
yep,
for the sole fact that these other parents are probably going to be around there as well. It just I didn't like it. Left a bad taste in my mouth 100%. And
yep.
yeah, and you're right, man. It's about being a good human, a good person, a genuine person, dude. It's like who goes around yelling at somebody who's trying to de-escalate the situation? That shit had me pissed, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, to go back to what Adman was asking earlier about the higher pay grade and uh, does that indicate ability to lead and manage in an organization? Like if
Mhm.
you're still in the military, if you're still on active duty, or if you're still a reservist who's got time left to serve, or you're still serving your country in uniform, whether it's Title 10, Title 32, Compo 1, 2, or 3, um, you've got time right now to start doing that. Like if you know you're one of those people who are just a pain in the ass boss, and you just drive your people to no end and make them work hard, and then you claim the credit, like whatever the situation happens to be, like you've got time now to start working on those skills and building those habits, so
Right.
that when you get to the point to becoming a civilian, whether you're just a regular civilian not working, or you're a civilian working for an organization, and you end up in these situations, because you're going to run across them, right? You
Mhm.
can't avoid it. It's not like the military base where you're safe inside that bubble. Like once you get outside that bubble, the world is a different place, and you get a glimpse of that driving back and forth to work, but you don't really fully grasp it until you're fully out of uniform, fully out of that bubble. um, you're gonna have to deal with it one way or another at some point. So you can actually start now. You've got time to not only prepare to retire or transition out of the military, but you've got time
Right.
to prepare yourself mentally to be to reevaluate and be a better person with your
Mhm.
approach to how you deal with things and how you deal with people, basically.
Yeah, yeah, it's completely different outside the gates, man. It really is. I
Yep.
mean, it has its good times, it has its bad times, right? Like we're not subject to the UCMJ really. I mean, unless you do something really bad, right? I hear that they're trying to revamp that whole thing where people who are retirees are going to be subject to the UCMJ.
Whoa,
Uh, yeah, I'll
take
have
it
to
easy.
find something on there. Yeah, I
I'm
was in
out.
talks. Yeah, I was in talks with somebody about it, and I do know, like, retirees. If you are in what is it? If you are arrested and you stay incarcerated for a certain amount of time, then they can do something with your VA disability benefits. I
Mhm.
understand that, and again, these are things I've read. I don't have too much information enough to share here right now. Right, I'm sure I can do some research and share it in the future. Um, However, when as a civilian, you're not subject to UCMJ. So like, what I've noticed was the contrast in like structure and discipline, right?
Mhm.
You are in the military, everything is structured, everything like you mentioned, you're in that bubble, right? Everything is, you there's a hierarchy, with ranking and all that stuff. You show respect, this and that, proper greeting of the day, all that. Nobody does that. Nobody does it in the civilian world. I've not seen that. I still go into work. I'm like, hey, I say good morning to everybody. Some people don't say it back. Some people just just grunt. I'm like, all right, well, it is what it is, whatever. I'm not a chief warrant officer anymore. I'm not going to be like, hey, where's the greeting of the day? They're devil dog. I'm not doing that anymore. Not that I've done that in the past. But it's a whole different animal once you get out. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, there's also that gray zone. If like me, I just started working as a civilian again. You've been working as a
Hmm.
civilian for a few months now, 10
Yep.
months, 11 months,
Yep.
even in between, right? And we're working on base, right, as civilians.
Hmm.
Even in between, like you get a little bit closer to that line of getting away from the discipline with just civilians, right? I mean, I walk by people all day long who don't give me the time of day, and I'm walking through their offices and through their hallways and stuff like
Oh
that,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's just like we all work here. We're all on the same team. Like, what's going on? What's really happening?
Yeah.
Uh, so you definitely get a taste of it out of uniform. I think because in uniform you just have this obligation to be respectful because of the fact that it's kind of the social norm of the unit or of
Hmm.
the service that you're in. Like in the Marines,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's really highly,
Oh,
like it's
absolutely.
one of those top 5 things on a Marines checklist. So yeah, you have a little bit more incentive because you also know you're going to be held accountable if you don't, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's none of that out
S-
here.
yeah, civilians
No.
don't have that. Even with the police, like people are they're at the point where they want to defund the police. So you see where that's kind of going.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know about that, man. But yeah, it had me thinking. I was like, how do you act like a civilian? I mean, there's no real way to act like a civilian, right? But I'm like, how do I fully integrate myself into civilian life? You got to choose who you're going to be, right? Am I going to be this asshole? Am I going to continue on with my customs and courtesies? And I mean, I feel like for the sake of just raising my kids the right way, I continue on. Like, hey, look, I tell them before you leave the house, or if you are going to meet up with one of your friends' parents, you say, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, thank you, no, thank you, be be courteous, be respectful, have manners. I always share that with them. Like, never lose that, because I mean, once you start raising kids like that and they don't have that as they're growing up, they're not. It's hard to gain that as you get older.
Yeah. That's also just basically the basic rules of respect, right? If you want to be
Hmm.
respected, you have to respect people.
Yeah,
And
yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna bring something up on the screen here. It's
mhm.
a question I got on the Green Logbook YouTube channel, and let me see. It was on a video I made titled "Is 20 years in the military worth it?" And it was, of course, by Adman. So, Adman, if you're still watching out there, if you're listening, we're giving you a shout out here, man. It was a great question, by the way. Let's put it up on the stage here. Okay. So it says, let me get back to it. I'm an E8 at 24 years, and I have 3 more years to go. To be honest, I have no real plan when I'm done with the Navy. That may sound blasphemous, but I just don't have a plan. Any suggestions? I'm listening. So my suggestion to Adman was, after talking to several dozens of retirees and just as many veterans, I found that many of us don't have a set plan. I didn't have a plan either, except follow my wife wherever her career took her. After 20 plus years, I felt I owed that to her. So I found a nice job while supporting hers, as well as continue to help fellow veterans. I'd say do what you've always wanted to do. No better time than after you have some time plus some income each month. So, admin, I hope that that has helped you out, but I know that we encounter a whole lot of that. People who don't really have a plan after they get out. I, for one, did not really have a plan. I just figured I'd go to school and maybe, whatever happens, I'll get a job. But really, my plan was just support my wife and let her career blossom, because she's followed me around so often for so long
Yeah.
that I felt like I owed that to her, right? So that's exactly what we're doing, and sure enough, it's proving to, to blossom for me too, because I'm doing new things that I never thought I'd do, and I'm meeting people and things like that. So it's working out. But yeah, Adam, man, I appreciate that question, man. It really helped out, and we give you a shout out here. Whenever you have a question like that, please feel free to post it up.
Yeah, man. And actually, any questions, anything that comes to your mind, if you got a question as we're in the
Mhm.
midst of talking, or if we talk about something and you want to ask about that, but if you want to ask about something completely different, feel free to ask about any of that stuff as well. I think
Correct. Mhm.
my perspective on this plan thing is really, I had plenty of plans coming out of the military and what I wanted to do, and I've fulfilled some of those.
Yeah.
But the thing about planning is the your plans are generally never going to be, it's never going to be a linear path from the inception of the plan, the thought process, the the putting steps down on paper or whatever, however you want to do it, and then
Right.
starting to execute on that plan. Like, it's never linear. It doesn't go in a straight line. It's not like, okay, I'm going to start here and then I'm going to do it. I think I was just thinking about this the other day, and I really wanted to talk about it, and I'm glad you brought it up.
Mhm.
um the 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 ability to just be comfortable with an 80% solution. Like, I think we're so ingrained in the military from, everything has to be perfect, and we have to have zero dollars lost, and we have to have full accountability of everything, and everything has to be to the letter, and we've got these big thick regulations that we have to spell all that out for us. If it's not
Mhm.
even, that complicated, we make it doubly complicated so that we know that all the i's are dotted, all the t's are crossed.
Yeah.
But I think we get so ingrained with that in our time in the military that we're not able to step outside of that and think about,
Mhm.
like, okay, well, I put in my best effort, I did all these things, this is what I wanted to do, I've accomplished this and this along the way. Like, you're not going to hit a home run every single time you get up to bat. It's just impossible. You can't do it. Nobody can do it. You're not going to make a touchdown every time you throw the football on the field. You're not going to score a goal every time you kick the ball in the air or every time you throw the ball up and towards the hoop. I think it's okay to give yourself a little grace and be like, you know what? I put in all my effort. I got to 80%, and 80% got me a result that's in line with what I wanted to do. It's not exactly the way I wanted it and exactly how I wanted it to happen,
Yeah.
but it got the results that I want either way. And just to be content with that and to be able to move on beyond that and not just sit there and dwell on it and be like, what did I do wrong? And you start to do this kind of like self AAR report, if you know what an AAR report
Yep.
is for the Army, at least. I don't know if it applies to
After
all the
action report. Yeah.
services. Yeah. You start to do this AAR analysis on what you've been doing instead of just like taking it at face value, what you did, what you accomplished,
Right.
even if it wasn't 100% like the best thing ever. And then just moving on to the next thing, we tend to dwell on those AR kind of moments in our lives. A lot of us do, and I think we need to just give ourselves a little bit of grace, especially if you're at the end of your career, or if you're getting to the point where you're going to get out of the military. Like, you've accomplished a ton, believe it or not, right?
Mhm.
Just by serving, just by putting on the uniform, that you're the 1% of the 1% of the population who does that, right? That in itself is a huge
Yeah.
accomplishment. And then just take it from there, right?
So that's tough to do, John. I'll be honest, because that's always something that I've been trying to get into as I got out. So my career was always, uh, what's next? Let's achieve the next level, right? Like starting from PFC all the way to Chief Officer 3. I'm like, okay, I'm working. I got my package ready. I'm up for promotion. I'm competing, and it's always like, okay, made it. What's the next step? Let me work, work, work. Next step, compete for promotion. Bam, next step, next step. And it was always like there was always a sense of success, right? So I was like, I got to be perfect, especially like just being in like the Marine Corps where everything's so judgmental, right? Like if your uniform doesn't look perfect when you're on a board, you're gonna get called
Yep.
out on, right? Or you're gonna get booted, like, oh, this guy didn't run, a perfect physical fitness test. You're gonna get called on that. So it was always like a sense of like, I gotta be perfect. So it was so hard to just settle for the 70 or 80%. Like, hey, look, family's good.
Right.
We're all right. We got some income coming in. We're okay. But then as the wheels start turning up here, I'm like, no, I gotta, I gotta keep progressing. I gotta keep, I gotta find a better job. I gotta find more money. I gotta do this, even though we don't really need it. But it's
Right.
like, I gotta keep going on. And it's so hard to get away from that because that's the way my mind is programmed. I have to keep on progressing, being successful. And this is a conversation I have often with my wife. She's like, why can't you just be content with what you
Mm.
have and where you are? I'm like, because I can't sit still. I cannot just settle for that. I
Not
have
wired
to.
like that.
No, yeah, I am not wired like that. And it's
Mm.
part of me in my mind. It's like this sucks because I will never be content. And another part of me is like, I have such a drive to do these things that I'm gonna accomplish something, right? But it's hard to settle for the 80%, even when it's like, you know, they say that to us like in the military too. Hey, the 80% solution is where you need to be. You're not always going to hit a home run like you mentioned. Not everything's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
But it's like that's like when I start before I send an email, I'll read that thing like 8 times and constantly make updates to the thing. Like I can't just let it go. So that's tough for a lot of folks, especially it is for me. So I know if it's for me, I know it's tough for a lot of folks out there. Just coming from a success mindset to I'm just going to settle for good enough. That's tough, dude. After you leave the military.
Yeah. And maybe it's the narrative itself, right? Maybe it's just the word like settle. Like when we hear that word, I'm sure a lot of things pop up in a lot of people's minds, especially my mind, your mind. Like
Oh yeah,
that's what you say when you've met that person that's kind of all right, and you're like, I'm gonna kind of okay, cool, we'll get married or whatever.
yeah.
I'm gonna settle on this
This is
person. And
this is it, right? This
this
is
is the
it.
bad context behind it, right?
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't know, man. I think the thing that's helped me out the most in trying to get to that, and again, I'm one of those person that wants to drive and do better and do more and be successful as possible.
yeah.
But over the years, I've come to the realization that, like, at the end of the day, right? And there's a great blog post by Tim Urban, if you want to look it up, and it basically spells out like the last, so let's say you're 40 years old, the last average lifespan, 40 years of your life, like those last 40 Super Bowls, the last 40 Christmases that
Yeah.
you get to spend with your family and your parents or whatever. It's a great, great article. But I kind of look at it from that perspective of like, what is it actually going to mean when I'm on my deathbed? Is this something I'm going to be thinking about when I'm taking in my last, 3 or 4 breaths before I
No,
die?
none of
Is
it
it
will.
really going to matter? Can I take all
Yeah,
this with me? Am I going to do I need to be like a pharaoh in Egypt in, 3,000 years ago and get buried with all the gold and all the chariots and all
yeah,
the stuff? Like, no,
yeah. None of
it's
that
not gonna,
matters. It doesn't.
no.
It doesn't.
Um, so I mean, through the reading, and I think that's probably a reason why you read a lot of stuff as well, to
Mhm.
get knowledge, to understand things, to learn new things, but also to just like get some insights from some people that may be smarter, maybe a little bit further ahead in life.
Yeah.
Um, that's what I take away from the reading. And one of the things that I've done over the years is done this exercise. It's a stoic exercise. And basically it's like you sit down for 2 or 3 or 4 days or maybe a week, and you just basically don't shower, don't shave, eat the least amount of scrappy food you can eat, sleep on the floor for a couple days. And then during that process, you're asking yourself the whole time, like, this what I'm really afraid of um, succumbing to in my life, right? And in that process, you're basically practicing kind of minimalism, which is a
Mhm.
is a thing that me and you talk about a lot.
Yep.
And you're also building this kind of habit in your brain of being able to to survive through a tough predicament or a tough time when you don't actually have to. It's something that we do in the military, right? We train in these environments where we're out in the cold, we're out in the wet, we're miserable, we don't have enough food, we don't get showers. Like we do it in the military.
Yeah.
If you would apply that to your own life in a situation where it's not so critical, right? Because in the military, you're kind of, even though you're doing that training for whatever operations or exercise or whatever it happens to be, right? You're still
Hmm.
getting scrutinized by the people who are in charge, and they're like, oh, we need to have these numbers up and we need to make sure we
Right.
put all these reports in. And like
Yeah.
that's still a there's still constraints on that environment. But if you do it in your own environment where you control it and it's not critical and it's not like you have to eat just beans and rice for a week, like you're setting boundaries for yourself and you're not being
Hmm.
critical of yourself during that process. I think you can then build those habits that trigger a lot of things subconsciously in your brain that actually allow you to be able to withstand adversity, and setbacks and things like that because
Okay.
you know how to handle it, right? It's just like training
Yeah.
for military exercises, basically.
So exposing yourself to those elements would kind of change your mindset on those things,
Yeah,
essentially.
and
Okay.
it
I,
could
I
be
see that.
as simple as like, okay, I'm going to sleep on the floor for a week, or okay, I'm going to sleep in the least comfortable bed in the house for a week, or it could be as extreme as doing all those things at one time. But it's just exposure training, really. Exposure training for to build up the calloused kind of skin that you need for adversity.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the issue that I have too. It's like, when is enough enough, right? Like, I want to build things, I want to create things, and it's like, when is enough going to feel like enough? I don't have an answer to that. I wish I did, because then I'd know this is enough, right? But uh, I'm a very creative type. I need to do things with my hands and with my mind. I need to think things up and just kind of throw things at the wall and see what sticks. And if something looks like it's sticking on there, I'm gonna try that out. Right.
Right.
So I'm gonna attempt to do something. I'm gonna figure something out with what you just mentioned, right? Expose myself to different elements and seeing if that will make me feel like maybe the 80% is all I need.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try that
And
out. Try-
and it's also something you can apply to the situation that we talked about in the beginning, right? The
Mhm.
kind of and you did, right? You applied it to that situation where you were like, "Hey, I've got a different perspective on this. I can see that there's going to be something going on here that I don't
Yeah.
need to be a part of, and I'm just going to kind of remove myself from that situation," or however you decide to handle it.
Yeah.
The multitude of answers for it,
Mhm.
but it comes back to what you said. Like you got to know yourself. You have to have self understanding of who you are, what you value, what things trigger you or don't trigger you. Like all those different things you got to take into consideration, and then
Right.
be able to make an educated decision versus just a decision based on pure emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. So John, with that, I think there was a question posed to me recently by a family
Mhm.
member. Um, it, I'm trying to see how I can word this. Um, how the question is something like this. It was like, how did you know what to do when you did it, especially in the military, right? Like, how do you know, like, when to take action on certain things? And my response was, I didn't. I didn't have. You don't always have all the information to go forward.
Right.
Like, similar to what you were saying, like the 80% solution. I don't have all the information. I People came to my office, or I'd go to people's offices, or units or whatever, and I'd ask them questions because they may know something more than I do about certain things. Oftentimes, I'd be at work. People would come to my office. Hey, sir, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I'd explain the situation. I'd explain how to do things. Um, but in my response to this person, it was, in actuality, nobody knows everything. You know, I know for me, like, I put on a facade, like, hey, look, like a very stoic facade, right? I was always calm. My mind was always kind of working. I didn't know everything, and I admit that fully, but I knew where to go to find the answer to these things. That's what, us chief warrant officers were famous for, right? Or are
Right.
famous for. You know who to contact for what things. Um, and that's why we're like so valuable in different units. And my response to this person was like, look, in reality, man, you may not realize it, but dude, everybody's just winging it at life, man. Really, it's people are just figuring things out as they go along, right? As they go along. And I recently posted a video about this. It was after I spoke to that person because it kind of hit me, right? Like if even if like if you're a parent, and you've never been a parent before, I mean, do you know what to do? All you can do is ask people who may have parented before. Like, do you actually know how to do things? Do you actually know how to do sword manual in the Marine Corps? If you've never done it, no, you ask people, you figure things out. Nobody ever knows everything unless that is your sole job in life and you're the SME, the subject matter expert, and you are paid or you know that particular thing inside and out, then I get it. But that means that you are a master of one, maybe, and what's the saying? Master of one, a expert of none. I can't recall what the saying is, but you master that one thing, you don't know a lot about everything else.
No.
So, yeah, I just explained to this gentleman, like, look, man, everybody's just kind of going through it in life, and they're just trying to figure it out. Same as you, same as me. I don't know anything about anything. I just figure things out as I go along. Hey, how do you set up a podcast, dude? I don't know. Buy a
Right.
mic, buy a camera, get some streaming software. Find some dude in glasses that may know about military and just be a co-host with him. You know, no. But yeah, man, it's just figuring things out about life. How do you be an effective civilian? Shoot, I don't know, dude. Just talk to people, see how it is, see what to do at work. I don't know. That was my response to this guy. He's like, "Oh, really? I thought, when I went into the colonel's office that he knew everything." Well, no, he does know everything. He has people, his staff like the CO has a staff of people, S1, S3, S6, whatever you want to call it, who come and give him information on things about his unit. He doesn't know everything. And many of them will admit that, that's why they go out and seek the information from their SMEs. So, yeah, that was it. I just wanted to share that. Like, people don't know everything. A lot of people act as if they do, and that's called confidence. And it's good to go through life with confidence, but also don't be afraid to reach out to somebody else and just be like, "Hey, man, how do I do this?" Because Lord knows I do it all the time at work. Because I was a Marine. I work for a Navy unit. I am not up to speed on technicalities of the Navy. I c Don't even get me started on the Army's ARs because there are more ARs than I even knew existed, right?
No.
And I have so many questions because I've been to Army schools and I had so many questions about ARs. I'm like, my eyes are bleeding just from reading this stuff. But I was the first to admit I don't know anything. Can you help me? And don't be above that. Don't be above it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's what I find myself in this kind of pattern, this holding pattern right now where I've started a new job. I don't know anything about the job. I mean, I know electronics and I know
Yeah,
computers and I know that stuff, right? So the
yeah,
fundamentals I understand, right? If you want to
yep,
talk to me about circuit boards and like software, like I can do that. I can talk that all day long. But specific things, right? So it's that master of yeah, I don't remember the saying either, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
we
Um,
don't even know the saying.
you've got the depth, but you don't have the breadth, right?
Yes, yes.
Essentially what it boils down to.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
I'm in that position right now where I'm constantly asking questions and constantly trying to. And the cool thing about it is now, like I know from before, like all my years in the military, and then also working as civilian in different positions, all of that was like this air of confidence about me and this kind of like I don't want to call it bravado, but it was like this, oh, I know what I'm doing and I can figure this out. And you could just throw anything at me and I'll just figure it out. And now I see myself in the pattern shift where I'm asking questions and then I
Yep.
shut my mouth and I'm really just like not being like, oh, well, this means this. And then this should mean this. And then this should mean this. And I'm not approaching it as someone who thinks they know everything. I'm approaching it more of like a Socrates kind of approach
Hmm.
where I'm constantly asking questions to the point where it's annoying to some people, I'm sure, of all the questions that I ask. But yeah, and I'm literally like writing everything down, taking notes, I'm trying to listen more than I talk, which is kind of hard to believe when you see the podcast sometimes. But yeah, I find myself in that position where I'm taking it from a different approach, and I'm not trying to be the, oh, I know everything guy. And I'm just trying to learn from every single person, whether it's the HR people, the IT staff, the next level boss above me, like the people around me who I don't even directly work with, who work within the organization.
Yeah.
And they're different counterparts because they're part of the Navy and I'm part of the Army, and I'm like a single Army guy in a sea of Navy people, no pun intended. Um, so yeah, it's interesting. And I think I kind of, at the end of the day, it's just like, don't be an asshole, just be humble, be kind, treat everybody like they're your grandmother. And you won't ever have any real problems, I don't think, if you just take that kind of approach.
Now, John, what isn't that how Socrates was like taken out
Yeah.
because he asked too many
That's why he was
questions?
executed or exiled and maybe then executed afterwards.
Because they thought that he was going to, yeah, he was asking too many questions of the Senate, was it, or something to that effect?
He was pissing
So
people
he,
off.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's what they teach you in like law school, the Socratic method. The why, the why, the why. Always dumb it down to the why, right? Always ask questions. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's like little kids. Little kids are really good at the Socratic method.
Oh yeah.
Why?
And
So
then they
yeah.
get beaten into submission to not use that method anymore.
And then they go to law school and they relearn it all over again.
Don't beat your kids, by the way. P.S.
No. How did we get here again?
Uh,
Oh man. No, so dude, yeah, again, crazy week, man. It's I just need to clear my head for this upcoming week. It was just a whole lot of events today, and with these interviews coming up and things like that, things I didn't realize were going to happen all at once.
no,
Especially with like direct hires and things like that. They need folks on board, so we'll see how that goes. But
nice.
yeah, man, it's the week is starting to, the future's looking good, and but it's filling up really quick, and hopefully I can keep up with this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And just so everybody knows, like we're approaching the holiday season. Maybe we should have started with this, but we can end with this.
Yeah.
We're approaching the holiday season. We're in November now. Black Friday is coming fast. Thanksgiving's coming fast. All the Christmas decorations are already up in the stores, so you can buy all your Christmas trees and all that stuff now. As we move into the holiday season, there may be some small gaps in between on the episodes, depending on what's going on. Like in a couple
Yeah.
weeks, I've got my anniversary. We've got Thanksgiving coming up and all these different things. So we probably will be slowing it down a little bit for the next 2 months.
Mhm.
That's what I anticipate. If we're hardcore and we're going full steam and we're trying to be perfectionists, then we we may be here every single Sunday. But just to let everybody know, if you don't see an episode, if you don't see us on a Sunday, we also have families and we also have things that we need to do with our families and wives and kids
Yeah.
and all the things that have to happen and put up Christmas trees and put up the lights on the house and all that stuff.
Mhm.
So just so everybody knows, as we move through the holiday season, also remember that this is the time of year, this last quarter of the year, last 3 months of the year is the highest rates of depression, of suicidal ideations, of things like that. So if you do get a chance, spend a lot more time within the next 4 to 8 weeks at least to reach out to your buddies, reach out to your battle buddies, reach out to your fellow veterans, reach out to the people you used to work with if you're already retired. If you're still in service and still in uniform, check on your people, check on your folks, including civilians,
Yeah.
and make sure that everybody's good and keep an eye on everybody because we all want to make it through safe and sound and get to 2025, which is going to be a great, great, great year. So,
Oh, hell yeah. So yeah, we got the next holiday coming up is what?
the next holiday coming up is my anniversary with my wife.
Well, mine too. My
I don't know
anniversary
about
tomorrow.
anybody else's. See, there we go.
No, it's tomorrow, but the big one, I'll shout out to my fellow Marines out there. November 10th, 1775. It's going to be the 249th Marine Corps birthday on November 10th. And I know that that is something that we all look forward to. I might even do a live stream and just eat some cake on the live stream and just sing, the Marines hymn in my room or something, or maybe with some other Marines. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see. But yeah, November 10th, 1775. Don't forget to say hurrah to a fellow Marine out there if you see him.
I might have to jump if you need some Army support from the back lines for that frontline effort. Let me know.
I could always use some support, man. Some supporting fires here and there. I'm all good. So, hey, everybody, listen. Right above John's head, where is it? Where is it? This way. Right above John's head, you got all the links. The military retirement group. We just got a whole lot of people in the military retirement group.
Oh yeah,
just recently. So we're spreading the word, the good word out there. You can find a ton of stuff on the files tab. We're supported by REITs across America. You can get our Amazon book, The Bottom Line Up Front. Just Google The Bottom Line Up Front book on Amazon. It's free for Kindle if you're a Kindle Unlimited subscriber. If not, it's probably one of the lowest priced books on Amazon. We're just doing it to help out with the streaming software costs. And what else we got? The Green Logbook, my own personal YouTube channel. And yeah, I think that's it. Unless you got something else, John.
That's it, man. Just stick around. We may be doing some things over the holidays that are a little unorthodox, and stick around to find out if you want to see some of those things happen. We might even give a book away or something. Who knows? We'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, I got to order my Santa hat, so we'll see. We'll see. No, all good, man. Hey, great to see you again, John, and everybody else out there who joined us. We really appreciate it, and have a safe weekend.
All right, take care, everybody.
Okay.
All right.
Out here.